I don't know. I'm hopeful because I have to be.
I understand that one.
Did that answer your question? I don't even know.
Yeah, I think so. We're just gonna probably like circle back. Some of your answers might be a little you might have to repeat yourself here, but I'm just getting like the things I need to know. Okay, so you kind of already answered this, but what would you say are some of the underlying causes of many environmental movements?
Underlying causes, honestly, I think a lot of them start out of a crisis. Something bad has happened, and because that is usually the primary motivation for change, unfortunately, is something has to be bad for people to really put the brakes on. Whether it's a infectious disease outbreak, which has been the case more than once, whether it's the Great Smog in London. You know, when thousands of people died because the air was polluted, that got people's attention. Like, holy crap, it's just air we're breathing that's killing us. That was really got people looking at air quality. It took a major price. It took people to die, which is really sad. I think about in the 80s, you had there was a huge oil tanker spill in Alaska that got people thinking about environmental protection of our oceans and sea life. I'm just going off the top of my head here, but usually it's a crisis of some sort. Something that gets people's attention, and they say, we don't want that to happen again, or we can do better than that. And thankfully, whether it's been environmental regulations, like the Cuyahoga River catching on fire, and we're going, maybe we need a Clean Water Act. So I think the environmental movement that could spin out of this go any number of directions, whether it's when we find out we can use tools like this and don't need to travel to go to meetings, I think the conference industry is kind of, I don't know if they're ever going to recover from this, to be honest. People going to big hotels and having thousands of people wondering about, I don't know if that's going to happen again, especially if you can do things virtually. I think the fact that people have been so stir crazy and wanting to get outside. I had the meditation session for you guys. It's like, just spend five minutes outside. You don't even have to go anywhere. Just stand outside. I think people are realizing how important that is and how necessary that is for your own mental health. I'm grateful. Like, today, I'm going to probably go for a walk. We've got 180 acres of prairie out here. I'm going to take the dog and
that sounds nice.
Let's see what's ready to move. See, and that's the thing. When you think about stuff like that, it puts a smile on your face. It's like, oh yay, I'm going to go look at the trees. So there's esoteric value. There's inherent value that you can't necessarily quantify other than your emotions, your state of mind from having some place. Everybody's got that place. I've had this conversation with I don't know how many people, but everybody has a place in their mind. You think about your favorite outdoor place is somewhere. It might be, when you go camping with your friend. It might be your grandparents' backyard. It might be a special park that you visited when you were 8 years old. But everybody's got a special favorite outdoor place. And I think right now people are really looking for the feeling they get from places like that. So I'm hoping they act wisely when it comes time to visit those places again.
Yes, I agree. So what would you say is a positive effect of what? Oh, sorry. What would you say is
I was laughing.
what would you say is a positive effect of an environmental movement?
I don't know if there's ever been, I mean, I can think of negative effects of an environmental movement, like the monkey wrench game. I'll start there. Negative effects would be people doing dangerous or unethical things in the name of protecting the environment that are actually causing more problems than they're solving. I think about the Animal Liberation Army or Animal Liberation Front or whatever they were back in the 80s. There was a group was releasing lab test animals. Like they'd go in, and if there were rats or some sort of animals that were being tested in a lab they'd go in and think that they were freeing them, and they'd release them out into the wild. Well, these animals have never lived in the wild, so they all died anyway. And so and now you're just kind of putting a negative face on environmentalists, right? And there's been activist groups in Iowa and in other parts of the country that, because of their actions, it gives everyone who cares about the environment and cares about nature a bit of a bad name or a bit of a bad reputation. In my town where I live, a decade ago, I had a job. I was working in watershed management, water quality, and I'd get upset sometimes because the local media would interview me and they would call me an activist. And just the term didn't sit well with me, and I had to kind of take stock of my own self and say, why does that bother me? It's like, because there have been people who have been environmental activists that in some ways aren't taken seriously, for one thing. And because of the actions that other people have taken, are seen in a bit of a negative light. And I don't like it when somebody ruins it for everybody else. But that's the other side of the spectrum, the negative outcomes of the environmental movement. The positives, we would not have a Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act. We would not have the protection that we do from harmful chemicals in our water, in our air, in our drinking bottles, the plastics that we use. The lead would still be in paint. You would still have a pretty unsafe, harmful environment if not for people who speak out. Rachel Carson is the reason we don't use DDT anymore. You have, the best things to come out of the environmental movement is a better environment. We have a safer, we have a safer home. We have better air to breathe. We have soil that is not always washing into the river when we're trying to grow crops because of the environmental movement. It still does in some cases, but not as bad as it used to. There's for every step forward. People think. I think I've mentioned this to you guys in class how people who don't like the idea of sustainability and environmental consciousness because they think it costs jobs, it costs more money. It's like it actually creates jobs, and it's actually a very profitable industry if you actually pursue it. If you pursue a career in sustainability, you're going to be poor if you do it right. Don't be a teacher. If you want to be, a corporate sustainability officer, you'd be a high individual, But people who think it's costing jobs, it actually creates jobs. It actually creates opportunities. It gives us a chance to be better. It's one of those things that raises the bar for everyone. There's a lot of talk right now about the economy, about how we need to get the economy back up and running. And one of my big questions is, do we need the economy to run the way that it has? or is this the opportunity for, Angela Merkel in Germany is saying we need a green economy. We need to come at this more sustainably when we come out of our houses. And I think that's an opportunity that is definitely lying ahead, and something that everyone should really take stock in and give thought to.
Oh, I agree. Can you explain to me, I know I'm just gonna have you recap it, I know it from class, I swear, but can you explain to me some of the more like important components of the transcendental and romantic movements of the 17th century? You don't have to go in depth really, but can you kind of like sum that up?
Sure. So transcendentalists, and this is in the 19th century, so this is the 1800s.
Yes.
So,
did I say 17th? I've been saying 17th.
Emerson, that's okay. That's okay. So Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, they were some of the early writers and philosophers who were really looking at this what became naturalism. So transcendentalists were the ones who were saying, we really can only discover how alive we really are. We really can't understand humanity until we put ourselves in nature. To know yourself, you must go into the woods. You must go to the outdoors and really understand what it is to exist, what we need to exist, what we don't need. And part of it is also understanding the things you don't need in life. And that, again, kind of relates back to where we are right now in sheltering in place. Figuring out what are the fundamental things we need to survive, what are the things we can live without. And in a lot of ways, that is very, very similar to the teachings and the writings of people like Emerson and Thoreau, saying, we need to get back in touch with ourselves, we need to get back in touch with our surroundings. Our surroundings right now might not be very far from our living room, but we're figuring out what it is we do and don't need. And the question, the vision I have for people when we do re-emerge in society is, are we just going to leave that behind and say, well, that was fun for a few months? Remember when we didn't do anything for 6 months? Oh my God, that was crazy. It's like, or do we take some of that forward and say, hey, remember when we didn't drive anywhere? Let's still not drive anywhere. Remember when we read books for fun? Remember when we didn't just go shopping all the time? Let's do that again. Or the crazy bread baking phenomenon now, or whatever. Or making your own toilet paper. I don't know. But the fact that people are having to get creative to entertain themselves, and this in many ways reflects the transcendental movement. We need to understand who we are as human beings, and the only way to really do that is to get out of this manufactured environment and get into a more natural setting.
Okay, thank you. So how would you describe a romantic movement?
The romantic movement, boy, that'd be a good question more for a historian than an environmental scientist. But I would
Do you know how it applies to?
The romanticists, I would say, are focused. Yeah, thinking about the emotional attachment to things. Yeah, so I think my background in English literature is helping me here. So the romantic authors and writers of their time were people who played on sentiment. It was about what they would write, things that would make you feel something, whether it was really tragic or really powerful or really emotional in some way, or exciting. Something that gets to the pathos of us as human beings, to get to your gut, to get to your feelings. Comes to the environment, Again, starting with kind of the negative things, you've got the people who scare you. You know, the drowning polar bears in the burning rainforest are their messages, and all is lost. There is no hope. You know, we're doomed. Or you have the emotional sentiment of the feeling you get in nature. I always think of the photography of National Geographic magazine is romantic in some ways because it's beautiful. You know, the picture you've got behind you of the dude skiing, people look at that and think, wow, that's cool, you know? Yeah. It plays on sentiment. So it can go both ways. And yeah, when it comes to the environment, you can definitely go in either direction. You can either scare people or you can make them excited about things. I think about the teachers I had when I was a kid that made me excited about the outdoors, that made me curious about it. They played on sentiment too, but it was curiosity in my case, that they would get you to wonder, you know, why does that bug only like that plant? And why does that plant only like living in that wetland? You know, or something along those lines, trying to make these connections.
Okay. Thinking about right now and thinking about what you were just saying about being scared or excited, what do you think people are feeling like currently regarding the nature? Do you think they're more scared or more like thinking about it spiritually?
Well, they're probably more scared right now of the grocery store than they are of the forest.
True.
Nature seems like the safe place. You know, I think that's probably a big component is that when you're outside right now, when you're in the sunshine, when you're socially distanced from the person next to you, that's 10 feet away or more, that feels safe. You know, if you're in a crowded place, I think, you know, even the people who are not agoraphobic and afraid of crowds are probably going to be a little sketchy for a while. But if you're out in a wide open field, you're going to feel a lot safer, which is kind of ironic because I think of, you know, I've taken kids out on prairie walks or going in a creek, and I've seen kids just cringe when a blade of grass touches their skin because they think a bug's crawling up. You know, so we've got this weird fear of the outdoors that in some ways is probably going to be completely overcome because it's going to feel a lot safer than being around a lot of other people right now.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Can you explain I know you've gone more in depth in class, but how people of the 19th century, like how urbanization affected their opinions towards the environment?
Sure. Well, cities in the late 1800s were filthy. You know, there was literally shit everywhere. We didn't have sewer systems. There wasn't. I mean, that's why you had cholera outbreaks. That's why people would die because of unclean water or unclean air. The basic living conditions in a city in 1880 were awful. You know, people wore the same clothes for a week, just like now, you know. Only they weren't very nice clothes. They were wool. They wouldn't, you know, your shoes would never dry, so you probably had foot fungus all the time. You know, you had people would have lice. They didn't, you know, soap was actually not really commonly used until the 20th century for all kinds of things. So hygiene was questionable, you know, on many scales, and so cities were awful, and so nature seemed like this, literally a breath of fresh air, you know, and I think people, unfortunately, oftentimes I think it was, you know, people of means, people with the money who could go to country home or who could pick up and leave. There wasn't the poor people who could leave. The poor people didn't have any choice. They had no way to get. You know, that's always one of my gripes about early writers and philosophers in the environmental movement. It's like, yeah, you guys were very fortunate to have the privilege of not having to work just to feed your family. You could actually sit and be a philosopher. You know, you had the privilege of that. that poor people didn't have to think about. They needed to make sure their kids didn't starve to death or die of tuberculosis, or terrible things. So the natural world was this magical, wondrous place that for most people in cities in the latter part of the 19th century, early part of the 20th century, was almost like an imaginary place. It was something they could never get to.
Yeah. So you just said that nature felt like a breath of fresh air to these people, and you said they're tired of being in their dirty cities and they wore the same clothes. It might be like a long way to like draw a line between then and now, but do you find that those are similarities between people now and then?
Sure. Yeah. Clearly our cities are much cleaner. We have indoor plumbing. But we're wearing masks everywhere. People are, I think it's a germaphobe holiday right now. I think people are finding, that's why Ledges State Park was packed 2 weeks ago. If I find that video, I'll email it to you, because it's just appalling.
Okay.
Everybody's clamoring to get their little piece of nature somewhere. The campgrounds, when they open up next week, it's gonna be a mess. Somebody's gonna do something dumb. That's my fear. Is that don't be that guy. It's like I tell my TAs for the contemporary environmental issues class. We're all using Zoom, and I was like, you guys are using Zoom for like happy hours and hanging out with people. I said, don't be the guy that ends up getting in trouble and in the Des Moines Register because of something dumb you did on Zoom. Somebody's gonna do something dumb.
True.
Don't be that guy. Don't be the guy who runs the campgrounds for everybody. Don't go poop in the wrong place. I don't know. I think there's a lot of parallels to the current situation, and people are stir crazy and just want to get out of their houses. It's not that they're fleeing a polluted, germ-infested city. It's that they're stir crazy. Got the privilege of being bored. True.
Yes. Exactly. It's struggling to find what you're doing with that. This is kind of maybe a repetition of what you just said, but what factors do you believe people are experiencing today that are wanting to push them to be outdoors?
Claustrophobia. Probably a little too much togetherness. Like my boyfriend works for the state hygienic lab, and he does monthly field sampling of rivers and streams in Iowa. And he was going to go do monthlies this month, and one of the gals that he works with, she requested to go, and I said, she's tired of being at home. She wants to get out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
I said, yep, you're exactly right. People are just stir crazy. The idleness of, we were just talking about this over coffee this morning, that I was like, this is what life used to be like for most people. Nobody went anywhere. Think of the days before airplanes and cars. Nobody went anywhere. Nobody did anything. My grandpa visited my grandmother when they were dating by riding a horse to see her. He took hours to get just a few miles from one another. And I don't think we, as human beings, understood that sensation for ages, for generations. To just hop in the car and go somewhere, to go walk around Target, even though you don't get anything and you just spent $70. These are things we don't do anymore, right? And we don't know how to occupy our time. So I think boredom and claustrophobia and too much togetherness with our immediate loved ones is what's prompting this more than anything. Is just idleness. We don't know what to do with ourselves anymore. We don't know how to be idle.
Yeah, I understand that. It was an adjustment for me as well.